Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening again. This is the Jason Long Every So Often podcast. And today I am joined by Mr. Bryan Flores, a former team member and a good friend of mine as well. And we're talking about how great people have lines in front of them when they get laid off, when they're changing roles, when they're looking for a new role. People line up to talk to them. And over the years, so many people have asked me, how do I find a great role? And so many employers have asked me, how do I find great people? And I thought this would be an amazing case study for everybody to talk about both of those things. So, Bryan, welcome. Thank you for joining me and introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Bryan Flores. I'm based out of the Atlanta area here in Georgia. I'm a account executive sales person that's kind of dabbled in all different types of sales methodologies throughout my life, and I have kind of landed myself in more of a tech sales role with a dabble of healthcare as well.
Perfect. And let's see what else. Tell me, I think we both went to University of Georgia together. Was that right? Where did we meet originally?
No, we met through a previous employer of yours, Yasmin.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
she
we met through
introduced us,
Jasmine.
and I think the
Yeah.
first time we had a lunch at some fried chicken place. I think it was in Lithonia or Conyers. I'm not sure where it was, but we ended up meeting somewhere, Tucker. But you took me to this place, and we ended up eating lunch. And then I think at that point you were looking for a rep for JH Media Group to help kind of offload the sales
Yep.
for your business at that time.
I remember now. I do
Yeah,
remember. Yeah, that was a long time ago now. That was
yeah.
like a decade ago. Was that? It was more than a
More,
decade ago. It
that's
was
more
was
than
it 15 years ago?
15. Yeah, about 15 years ago, probably at this point.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So recently, uh, you were laid off, I think, or something like that, and you were looking for a new role, and people lined up to offer you a new role. Let me make sure I got my list here. All right. So yeah, so you people were lining up to talk to you. And as I've said before, like so often people ask me like how do I become Bryan Flores? How do I get done with one role and a couple weeks later I've got people lining up out my door to ask me to come work with them. Tell me, how did you do this? How do people just find you and they're like, "Oh, this is the guy that we need to pay a pretty reasonable amount of money to come and work for us."
Well, at first, I hadn't quite been laid off yet. I didn't know that was actually coming down the pipeline. Beginning of November, I had made a decision to want to transition out of where I was. Um, the workspace didn't become a place I wanted to be involved with anymore. But at that point, I moved my LinkedIn to open for work, but on a private setting so that only recruiters could see. Changed my about me page or like the short paragraph that's under LinkedIn to more of a sales. I guess more of a sales summary of who I am as a person and what I've done. Wasn't focused so much on the niche that I was involved in. I didn't want to silo myself into long-term care. But being in healthcare IT, and after putting my profile into a ready for work or open for work status, but in a private setting, I had many recruiters start reaching out to me in the healthcare SaaS space. It was a lot. And not only that, I was also reaching out to my network. So, throughout my life, I've always been a connector. I've always built networks and gone to networking events and meet other professionals at conferences and always have been good about connecting and reconnecting with those people. So, as soon as I wanted to make that decision, I started putting out feelers, letting key people within my network know that I'm looking for positions and that I'm actively seeking and interviewing for a new role. I got a lot, like I said, a lot of people from uh, what's it called? Talent acquisition groups, third party recruiters connecting with me. And the great thing is I had a fantastic story. So, my transition from working at one healthcare IT company that got acquired by another healthcare IT company, and my role into helping that making that possible, which really got me past the first round interviews and then quickly into interviewing with the actual company people as well.
Gotcha. So when you were doing the outreach to contacts that you had about looking for a new role, what did you tell them? How did those emails go?
It's a little bit more personal. Email probably wasn't the method that I used. Probably a lot more messenger, a lot more direct messaging, text messages if I had their cell phone numbers, even phone calls. I like being able to connect with somebody and kind of hear the inflections on people's voices and then become a bit more personal. But at that point in time, I was looking for a new role. I had nothing really bad to say about the company that I was with at the time. But I was just ready for a new opportunity, especially that I just moved back to Georgia, which I feel like is the Silicon Valley of the Southeast. There's lots of IT companies out there, lots of fantastic IT companies in the Atlanta area. So at that point in time, I knew it was time for a change. I felt a bit siloed. I didn't really feel like I was getting the support I needed, and there wasn't that many people in the Atlanta area that worked at this particular company I was with since it was based out of Kansas.
Gotcha. 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 I'll tell you what, let's actually go a little deeper into what made you the sought after person. So
Okay.
I think, like you said, your experience in this acquired business, your experience, your role previous to helping get that business acquired, and but I think that there's a lot more to it than just that, because it's not just about looking at somebody, the way somebody looks on paper. It's a lot about how that person is in person. And I think that what you said about um, reaching out via messenger and by phone, like that's actually one of the big differences, because in a lot of cases I meet a lot of people who are like, yeah, I sent a bunch of emails, I filled out some interview forms or some applications, and that's not the case with you. You're an in-person or at least voice kind of guy. Tell me, like, if you were going to give advice to somebody that's looking for a role, tell me how do those conversations go? Like, give me the specifics.
So on LinkedIn, there was a big CRM company that is known worldwide that I was looking to get a reference for. And for me, it was, I think when you get a reference, obviously, into a company, you have better visibility, you have a better chance of an interview. So I was looking to see what was going on. I had a friend of mine who told me that he had an employee at this particular company that had just posted that they're hiring. So I reached out to that particular employee, not knowing who he was. But the way I positioned my message was, hey, I saw your post. I'm looking to be a part of that particular family, and I wanted to get your take on the culture of the company. And none of this involved me asking for a referral. But after writing this thoughtful message about wanting to understand the business more and my interest in being a part of that particular business, he reached back out to me pretty quickly and said, hey, I'll actually be a referral for you. Here's my email address. When you apply, put this down. And it was awesome. I positioned myself, someone I didn't even know, but because the actual company was offering incentives to employees to help find other talent, he was willing to put his name on the line for me. And that's how it started for that particular role. There was another role that, I think the biggest thing for me was, once again, connecting with different people that I knew in the industry, looking online, seeing, what recruiters were broadcasting jobs and reaching out to those recruiters directly, letting them know that I was going to be applying and that I had extreme interest in those particular roles. And these were for some of the bigger box names, not some of the smaller EHR companies that were reaching out directly to me. So there was a bit of both. There was a bit of me kind of headhunting and seeing, what some of my top pick companies would be, seeing if I really wanted to go back into the office space, because a lot of the bigger box companies are, requiring you to be in the office 3-4 days a week. So it was, kind of juggling that. But I put a lot of fishing lines out, a lot of lures out. I wanted to not kind of keep myself in one situation. I wanted to kind of have a lot of options available, which is how it ended up happening towards the end, is having various offers within a short time frame, and then being able to pick what I wanted to do. So
I really like the piece, and I think that this is the thing that a lot of employees miss, is going out and finding the groups that you want to be a part of. In fact, this is probably the number one piece of advice that I give people, is like, don't be passive. Like, figure out where you want to work, and figure out who there, how to get connected with them, and give them the reasons why you want to work there. Like it's not about just taking whatever comes to you. It's about going after what you want. And employers definitely see that. That's, for me as well. Like that's when people come to me and they're like, I want to work with you doing this thing because of these reasons. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal for me. So I think that that's a huge piece. But you had a lot of people that at the end of the day, like, and they were offering you what, like 170 to 300K per year to come OTE to come in and work with them. Is that right?
Yeah. So there was a wide range. Some of the bigger box stores, because they had the name, and working systems, selling systems were on the lower end, but they had great benefits and a huge name backing them. And then obviously some of these other companies that where I was getting headhunted by had much higher lucrative OTEs. A lot of them, Series A, Series B funding, some venture capital funding, private equity involved. So, having worked in that space before and understanding that dynamic, I was able to actually interview by some of those companies that had headhunted me, and was able to get through various stages, and then eventually get offers by several of them. So,
Okay. I'm kind of curious. Did they ever, I think a handful of times you came into board meetings with me in one of those previous businesses you were in. And did they ask you about like going into board meetings or anything like that? I'm just kind of curious. Like, did those kinds of things ever happen, or was it solely about your ability to produce sales?
in this instance, it was about my ability to produce sales. I do know that one particular company that I turned down, that I was up, I was between the company that I chose and then this other company. I know that he was wanting to tell the board of directors that they hired me because they were actively looking for an AE, to help them disrupt the market. So but as far as me being invited to any of the board meetings at that point in time, no, it was mainly looking for top talent, and being able to help increase their sales viability. Some of these companies are already doing 20-30% year over year growth, but they're obviously wanting to see more, and get higher numbers attained.
Gotcha. Gotcha. The guys that can make it rain, everybody always wants to talk to them. All right. So you picked out one of these companies and you turned down a bunch. How many did you turn down altogether?
Four. I
Turned
turned
down
down four.
four that
Mhm.
were going to pay you a lot of money and were some pretty big names. And I think at the very end, you and I actually talked about the main one that you turned down, and you were kind of weighing, do I go here? Do I go there? Why did you decide to go to the business you went to?
I'm a new father, so I have a almost 7 month old. He'll be 7 months in 2 days. And so, I think the chapter in my life that I'm in really kind of delegated the company I chose. A lot of these companies, either work in office where I'm about, during rush hour traffic, I'm about an hour and a half, hour, 20 minutes one way to get to the office. So the amount of time I would spend away from my family was a big factor. So two of the roles were pretty much back in office with it was like a hybrid role, but mainly in the office. And then three of the other roles that I was looking at were 100% remote. So one company didn't even have a headquarters. Um, Another company, had a headquarters, but they were hiring top talent from around the U.S. And this other company that I worked for is actually an international company, but they have a presence in the U.S., and that's the one I ended up choosing. And the reason I chose that one is, even though it is a sales role and there is some headhunting involved, or hunting involved, there's a lot of managing as well, and then it's more localized to the Atlanta market. So I will be working with a lot of the clients that already exist here in the Atlanta market. Not very many conferences to have to go to. I've done that before. Traveled, did a lot of conferences. So I think once again, being away from my family was one of those things I didn't want to do. I knew obviously if it was necessary, then I'll do what I have to do to make it work. But the least amount of travel, being able to come home every night was a big factor for me. So I turned down two of the roles that I turned down. Their OTEs were way higher than the role I ended up taking, but the flexibility that I have and the ability to stay home, and obviously the benefits too, were some of the reasons that I chose what I chose.
Gotcha. Just so that everybody who's listening knows what OTE is, that's on target earnings. So if you're meeting the goals that you should be meeting, you should be at this income level. So just so everybody that's listening knows what OTE is. Okay, so
Yep.
you picked it for family, really, for convenience and for family, and so that you would have the time with your family that you would want. So fully remote, like so one of the big things was no was fully remote, not even hybrid. Maybe you'll go there like once a year or something or twice a year. Like what would is will you ever go to their office?
No, no, their offices are out of country. But I think there's one big event that they do yearly, and I think it's in Vegas this year in June. So I think I have one conference that I'm supposed to go to. The rest of the time is going to be, evening events, wine and dine, dinners, bringing lunches to the offices, really harboring those relationships and selling more. Like it's not even in software, actually. It's actually licenses that I'm going to be selling, subscription access to data. So, it was, and then the type of clients too was a big thing for me. The clients that I have are all $1 billion plus companies. So it's, the type of industry and the people that I'll be connecting with will kind of put me in a different scope. And it's a different kind of challenge than what I've faced before. So I'm excited to take this particular role on.
Excellent, excellent. So it was so being fully remote. I assume that this one paid on the higher end. Maybe not the highest because you don't have to go into the office and all of that. So it sounds to me like it was a mixture of income and work from home. Any other like was there culture fit pieces? Were there? Tell me about the other aspects.
Yeah, so the particular role that I ended up picking, I know the main sales rep in Atlanta. He's an old friend of mine. And then after meeting his boss, my new boss, the culture fit I think was huge. My future boss is a former sales trainer. He loves to read. I'm a big Audible person, so I love expanding my knowledge base and kind of understanding different sales methodologies, different self-help books that exist. So, I think connecting on that particular level was great. Seeing that my friend had gone to President's Club every year that he's been with the company was a big thing for me. So knowing that, the type of people I would actually be connecting with on a face-to-face basis in Atlanta had high success at doing this. So, I felt like I would be on a winning team, be able to be taken under their wing and, have the highest propensity to succeed as well. So,
Excellent. Okay. So it was multifaceted. It's not just culture. It's also, you felt like you were going to be able to win going there. And I think that that's a really big deal that a lot of people don't present. A lot of employers don't talk about, one, the culture fit, but also, for salespeople especially that are fairly competitive most of the time, like their ability to win. I think that that's a big deal. So. Excellent. That's fantastic. All right, let me see what else I got on my list here. All right. And did this group find you through LinkedIn or did they headhunt you through something else? Like how did that go?
no, so my friend that I knew, I'm friends with him on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and I saw him post on LinkedIn that they were looking for someone in this particular role. I was already pretty deep in a few other interviews at the time, and they were looking to fill this position. So I told him I had interest in it. He connected me right away with his leaders. And it's funny because the first go around, they told me that the person that they had offered this position to actually ended up taking it, so that they were going to hire someone in this position again, but it was going to be several months down the road. And then I guess a couple weeks in, that person was in training, didn't realize the difference between OTE and salary, and he, I guess, quit. So then they reached back out to me, and I was still in the market. I was still looking, but I was getting close to the final rounds on several of these companies that I was talking to. So, I said, if you guys can move quickly, I'd be happy to speak and kind of see what's offered, right? So, I was back in the game with them, and they ended up having the best offer. I ended up countering a bit and getting what I wanted, and yeah, I mean, like I said, the fit for me and my family was the best with this particular company that I chose.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I think that's actually another really important piece is negotiating your role both the employer and the employee. So if you were to give somebody a couple pieces of advice about negotiating the role, what would you say?
Speaking absolutes, if a lot of times, when you're interviewing, they may leak the OT range. So, what the on target earnings would be or what they have budgeted for the role. And if you know that they have a higher end budget than what they offer you on an offer letter, I think, being respectful, obviously, when you respond, but, essentially stating, hey, I definitely want to get this signed as quickly as I can. The only thing I would like to have adjusted would be, this particular amount of money. I know that I bring this to the table. I know I would be a value add. At this point, you're really kind of hard selling and reiterating the reasons why they should give you the more money. And that once those things were met, you'd be happy to sign and get that back, because recruiters are measured on hires. So, obviously once they get signed on the dotted line, that it's good for them. So, and it's not coming out of their pocket. So a lot of times they're going to be rushing back to speak to the leadership to see what can be done. But once again, obviously being respectful, letting them know that, y'all are my top pick, or one of my top picks at this point, is how I phrased it, because I hadn't necessarily chosen one at that point. I was waiting to get all the offers before I actually chose. But yeah, I mean, I did that with a few of the companies that had sent me original offers. And I think if you're applying in a sales role, they expect it. I think in this industry, if you don't, that's almost like a red flag to them. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it, but anytime that I've asked for more money after receiving an offer, I've usually gotten it, because once you're in and you've accepted, your increased pay is pretty much capped at a certain percentage every year. So the best chances of you giving you the best raise is during the offer phase.
Gotcha. All right. So then one last question. If you were somebody else, what advice, or no, that's a bad way to put it. What advice would you give someone to finding an amazing role?
I think being like tenacious. I think showing people that you want what you want, not accepting no for an answer. Seeing what you have to do to get in front of a recruiter or getting to the next phase. Also telling a story. What is your story? What is your why? Being able to iterate that and it be impactful, right? And have your story kind of align with what the mission of the company you're going after is needing. If you're really good at doing certain things, if there's certain reasons why people buy from you, being able to express that and kind of have that translate to, I could essentially do this for your company as well, and connect with your, clients and prospects alike, and, be able to make, the targets that you're trying to reach. So I think those things, don't just apply, do research, find out, who the recruiters are, see, what different people are liking on LinkedIn. I think that was a big tool for me. I had a friend of mine who had been out of work for 9 months, and he worked at a big tech company before. And he had been, applying. And anytime I'd call him, he'd say, I'm working on my resume tonight, or, and he even critiqued mine. He said, no one's gonna call you with your resume. My resume is nothing shiny or fresh, but the way that I connected with recruiters and made myself present and let them know that of my interests really got me to that first step. And then once I got to that first step, having a solid story that defined who I am as a person, that aligned with their particular company values and goals, quickly moved me into the following steps. And then I had found that recruiter for a particular company that my friend was wanting to work for. And he reached out to her, and in less than 48 hours, he had an offer for a BDR role. So
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Bryan. I really,
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. I think that people are going to love to hear about this. And I think that it's also, in addition to people looking for roles, understanding what top talent like you are looking for and why you're making the choices you're making is so important to the employers. So thank you so much for your time. Really,
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And this podcast will be up online. I don't know, in a week, less than a week.
Cool. I'm excited to see it, man. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right, I'll see you, Bryan.
See ya.